Hola, Héctor.
Hola, Anand.
¿Cómo
How you
estás?
doing?
How are you?
Very well, fine. And you?
I'm good too. It's an honor to have you here today.
Well, it's really my pleasure to be here in this podcast, which is quite famous nowadays.
Okay, so today my guest is Héctor Cancela. He's a full professor at the Computing Institute at the Engineering School of the Universidad de la República in Uruguay. He's also a researcher at the National Program for the Development of Basic Sciences, also known as PEDECIBA. His research interests are centered in network models and stochastic models applied jointly with optimization methods for solving problems in different areas like reliability, communications, transport, production, biological applications, agricultural applications, to name a few. He has published more than 100 full papers in international journals, index conference proceedings, and book chapters, and has supervised more than 20 PhD and master's theses. Héctor has been general chair and program chair of several international events and a member of the program committee of more than 50 international conferences. He's associate editor of the journals International Transactions in OR, RAIRO-OR, Mathematical Methods of OR, Computational and Applied Mathematics, and a member of the editorial board of the journals Pesquisa Operacional from Brazil and Ingenieria de Sistemas from Chile. Héctor is an IEEE Senior Member and also a member of ACM. From 2016 to 2020, he was president of the Centro Latinoamericano de Estudios en Informática, also serving as editor-in-chief for its electronic journal, and from 2006 to 2010, he was president of ALIO. And now, Héctor is currently president of IFORS. Héctor, thank you very much for accepting the invitation. Muchas gracias, es un gusto. So, looking forward to having a good conversation with you.
Un placer para mí. It's really quite interesting to have this different experience. So always a nice chat with friends.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Héctor, you are my very first guest from Uruguay, and that makes me really happy. Estoy muy contento. And when were you born, and which part of Uruguay are you originally from?
Yes, I was born in 1967 in Montevideo, in the capital of Uruguay. As you may know, Uruguay is a small country, maybe not so much in size as in population. We are just 3.5 million people, and well, we remain less than 4 million people. The prevision of population growth says that we'll never reach 4 million, and half of the population lives in Montevideo, where effectively I was born.
Wow. Yeah, so there was like a 50% probability that you'll be living in Montevideo when I ask the question. Yeah. Okay. And what can you tell me about your family background?
Well, my family is quite Uruguayan style. Actually, my father was born in Uruguay, and he has mixed Spanish and Italian accent. And actually, my mother was born in Italy in 1940 in the Second World War, and she came with her family in 1953. They emigrated from Italy, as many people who came to Uruguay from different countries.
Right. Do you have siblings?
Yes, I have two brothers, Jaime y Diego, my smaller brothers. we actually grew together in a time that was not very easy for the country, but well, we have fond memories of our childhood.
Did they become academics?
No, actually, Diego works in transportation. He has a truck, and well, he does transport for different people. And Jaime works in educational areas, actually in distance education, distance learning, but he didn't, neither of them did go to university actually.
Oh, okay. Would you say you come from an upper or lower middle class family?
Well, actually, I think we are a lower middle class family. In fact, I'd say from an economical point of view, we're actually in the lower, directly lower classes, because we were not very endowed in the 70s and 80s. There were, well, my mother is a high school teacher, and my father worked in social security in government, but salaries were quite low at that moment, and it was not, life was not very easy from an economical point. But
Okay.
culturally, both came from lower middle class background.
Right. You spent much of your youth under a dictatorship that lasted from 1973 to 1985. How did it affect you?
Well, actually, those were very dark years. There was a lot of violence, a lot of fear. There were many things that were not said. People could not meet. Actually, even birthdays could not be held with more than 5, 10 people. And well, there was this sense of oppression, actually, even at school. I remember we had some lecture books, and one of the pages was cut from the book because it was censored. Then, well, the military actually repressed a lot. And I remember also they coming into my house twice. The first time I was very, very young. And I remember that my mother sent me and my brothers to another apartment to a neighbor, just in case she was captured, she was sequestered. She didn't know what could happen. And well, as I said, I had 5 years, so I was really young, but I remember that when I came back, not much happened, but all my toys were in the floor because the military were searching for arms, for weapons everywhere in the house. And well, that also in high school, the sentiment also was quite difficult. It was difficult to speak of what was happening. Of course, teachers were afraid. Some of the teachers were themselves military that did not have any qualifications other than being from the military there. The headmasters usually were also from the military. So well, it was quite tightly held. Uruguay had at some point was the number one, the first in prisoners per capita. We always in Uruguay measure everything in per capita because, as we said, we are small. But that was really not a nice record. Much people were in prison at the point.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, part of my family emigrated to Brazil. Actually, part of my family emigrated for economical reasons, but part of my family emigrated also for political reasons, because well, they were afraid that they could be held prisoner.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. And what about Pepe Mujica? Was he already popular in those years? And what is your general impression of him?
Well, actually, those years he was being held prisoner by the military. He was known as one of the heads of the guerrilla, the Tupamaros. Myself, I didn't know him, as I said, as a young person. Those things were not told to me. People try not to talk about politics to young people, so that they could not pass on inadvertently information that could harm the family. I think that at that point he was quite a controversial figure. But afterwards, I think that when dictatorship ended and he was freed, he actually transformed himself from a guerrilla figure to a pro-democracy fighter. So actually, he's now very well regarded. I think not only in Uruguay but worldwide. I think he really is a very interesting figure for his ideals and because of his consistency. He lives as he thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I actually have met him once when I was the dean of my school. He came once to visit us while he parkoured the school, our installations, and when we talked a bit. He's really a larger than life figure. When Pepe Mujica visited us, he was accompanied by his wife, Lucia Topolansky, who also was a former engineering student. And well, she's a very strong figure and important politician.
So, given so many constraints, how did you manage to find feasible solutions for having enjoyable moments?
Well, there are many different things. On one hand, we lived in a house we had a backyard. My grandmother planted there some flowers and also some vegetables. And there we played a bit football. We had a hoops, so we played some basket also. There, my grandfather also had a very small, let's say, winery, because, well, as they being Italian, actually they prepared their own wine. He was a builder, so there were many tools. Well, we enjoyed that very much. Also, I liked a lot, enjoyed a lot listening to the radio, and also enjoyed a lot reading. Actually, I loved reading, so that was one of my main occupations also at the time.
Very interesting. We're going to talk about a couple of these topics shortly. You mentioned basketball. So you prefer basketball over soccer?
Yes, actually, yes. In Uruguay, there's a strong tradition, soccer, of course, but also a strong tradition in basketball. Actually, Uruguay has Olympic medals, both in soccer and in basketball. And I think it's one of the very few countries that have this kind of recognitions. Actually, in 1952 and 1956, Uruguay had bronze medals in the Olympics in basket.
Uh-huh. So Uruguay won 2 World Cups, one in 1930 as the host nation, and another in 1950 in Brazil, in a final match that became known as the Maracanazo, where subject to guest Jaime Schwarz-Victor was present, by the way. What is the importance of these 2 titles for you guys in a broader sense?
Yes, well, actually, soccer, or as we say, football, is very, very important for Uruguay. As an Uruguayan, as I must say that we have maybe 4 world titles, because in 1924 and 1928, the Olympics were actually held with the World Cup, and Uruguay won these 2 also. And well, I think that Uruguay had quite a difficult path to independence, and a difficult path to a national sense. And at the start of the 20th century, there were lots of discussions of how to build this national sense. So being the best in the world in soccer at that time, in the early 10s and 20s in the 20th century, actually it was very important to build this sense of nationality and to give people an identity. And then, well, of course, the title in 1950 revalidated that. But afterwards, the country went into quite a crisis in the 50s and 60s, economic crisis, political crisis, and the dictatorship. And at some point, all these World Cups also held us a bit in the past, instead of helping us to look into the future, to build a better future. It was kind of a nostalgia of what we had already achieved, and it was not completely conducive to improvement. So it's a phenomenon that's been discussed a lot in sociological terms. But well, nowadays I think that when we were 4th in World Cup in South Africa, something changed a bit, and people started a bit to look more for the future than to the past.
Yes, and Diego Furlan played really well. And my dad likes him very much, by the way. And I have a fun fact. In 2014, I went to Natal, which is located about, let's say, 180 kilometers from João Pessoa. It's about a 3-hour drive or something like that, to attend a World Cup match between Uruguay and Italy. And not only myself, but Manuel Iori and Claudio Contardo, who were both subject to guest, also attended the match. And Uruguay won. And then that was the infamous match when Suarez behaved, let's say, not
very, very well. No, I remember well that match. I didn't attend. I just saw it on TV, but it was quite an impressive match.
I think Chiellini will remember that match for the rest of his life. Being attacked here.
Yes, but I think they were quite friends with Suarez afterwards.
Yeah. But anyway, you know the importance of certain sports to some particular nations. And of course, soccer is very much connected with the culture of Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, and so on, right? So that's why I was wondering, and I suspected that probably the fact that Uruguay won, officially at least, a couple of World Cups, that left a mark in the people, right? And you mentioned radio. What did you like to listen to on the radio?
Well, I actually liked a lot to listen to tango at 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. I was always an early riser, and I like to listen a bit to radio before starting usual activities, going to high school, etc.
Tango from Uruguay, I suppose.
Yes, of course. Tango is from Uruguay, from Argentina, from Rio de la Plata, we say. So actually, tango was born at the same time in the two large harbors of the Rio de la Plata, in Montevideo and Buenos Aires. And of course, some of the larger figures in tango, such as Carlos Gardel, was actually born in Uruguay.
Yes, yes. Carlos Gardel, the first time I heard about his name was when I listened to a song by a very popular artist in Brazil called Raul Seixas. And at some point he mentioned the name Carlos Gardel. That's why it rings a bell. The name of the song is Sociedade Alternativa for those Brazilian listeners. And other than tango, did you listen to any other genres?
Yes, afterwards, as dictatorship was nearing its end, we started to have access to more varied music, and especially to rock, Argentinian rock, Uruguayan rock. At that time, also, well, what was called música popular uruguaya, Uruguayan popular music. Those genres during the dictatorship were very difficult to find. They were not in the radio, etc. But then when dictatorship was ending and democracy arrived, there was an explosion in diversity for us. And well, you know, the rock music actually was very associated with the protests, with, well, you know, younger people with long hair, with people just exactly that, rocking a bit. And música popular uruguaya also was very associated with left-leaning parties, well, with a social preoccupation. So it was an interesting point of life when I was in my teens.
Uh-huh. You mentioned books. What exactly did you enjoy reading in those days?
Well, actually, at home there was quite a large library. There were more than 1,000 books. So it was very, very nice, very varied, very eclectic, mostly classics. And when I say classics, that goes from the Iliad and the Odyssey, you know, passing by Divina Commedia by Dante Alighieri, passing by Les Misérables, Victor Hugo, passing by classics such as the Sherlock Holmes books by Conan Doyle, I don't know, Robinson Crusoe, but also some history books by Bartolomé Mitre about Argentinian history, books by Metternich about the life of the bees, whatever. There were many, many things. And really, I was also an eclectic reader. I enjoyed everything. I still do.
That's fantastic. And I know you are hiding some books behind you.
Yes, of course. A small part of the library is still there, you know. Oops. So those are books from an Argentinian library, from the La Nación, Biblioteca de la Nación. Those books were published between 1905 and 1910, 1915. And there were, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
7.
Wow.
Okay. This one, well, actually, I took the Historia de San Martín. That's a book about the history, the Argentinian history. Actually, the emancipation from Spain. And, well, those books were from my grandmother. And, well, afterwards passed to my father. And, well, nowadays, they're mine. I hope to pass them on to my son and my daughter.
That's incredible. So you have books like for more than 100 years. It's very, very impressive. And how was your performance in school?
Well, actually, I was a good student. I didn't have much problem. I usually did not have any trouble either with the teachers or with my with my classmates. So I enjoyed mostly high school, and well, it was a way also to widen perspectives and to interact. Of course, as I said, usually there was not so easy to be with other people of the same age if it was not at school.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Many people in a similar financial situation to the one faced by your family are forced to find a job at a relatively young age. Was that your case?
Yes, I actually started working at 15, first some summer jobs, and then even when going at high school, I started doing some part-time but full year jobs. Of course, when I finished, I started university, I continued working, so I did all the later part of my studies working and collaborating with family because, well, actually, we were quite tight economically.
Yeah, and what type of jobs?
Well, whatever. But first one was in a shoe shop, you know. I don't know how you say that in English, but here is cadete, so it's the young boy who does all the errands. And well, some summers I did that. And just took the shoes from one shop to the other. Well, if something was missing, well, ran all the errands all around. Then I worked in being a private post, something like that. You know, there were notifications to be sent around, and well, I parkoured all the city, just going to different places to addresses to give people these informations.
Like an office boy.
Yes, something like that. Yeah, and yes, and also with another a friend, also we started helping younger people to study, to prepare our exams, etc. When we were also when we were 16, we started, helping younger boys and girls, 12, 13, who were in lesser years in in the school, just well to prepare their homework or to prepare exams. That point,
Mm-hmm.
exams was very very common. And then, well, afterwards, when I started university, also I started giving some courses on computing.
Right, right. And could you afford to pay for an English course at that time?
Well, actually, my parents did quite a large effort, and they sent me to the Instituto Anglo-Uruguayo. When I was 10 years old, I started, so I actually could learn English, and well, I think that helped me a lot afterwards. Also, it helped me discover some music. For instance, at the Instituto, there were tapes from the Beatles, and well, I started listening to the Beatles as part of my English courses. Also, it helped me to discover science fiction. I had read also Jules Verne, but actually more modern science fiction from the 60s, the 70s. In that institute, there were a lot of books available by Asimov, Clarke, and all the like. Even, well, Bradbury, of course, even some books from Doris Lessing, who has recently won a Nobel Prize.
Right.
And, well, that also helped me to widen horizons.
Mm-hmm. And I know you studied computer systems engineering at university, but did you have access to computers before starting the course?
Well, actually, when I was 16, there was a private academia, a very young person also, who started teaching basic programming, programming in the basic language, using Commodore computers nearby where I live. And also my parents did also another effort so that I could attend those courses. So at a time where computing devices were not so common, I started going to this academy and programming there. And then afterwards, they also could buy me one, so that I could also practice at home.
Yes. I mean, that was not common at all. I mean, you're really lucky to have that opportunity, right?
Yes, I was really lucky. Of course, in other parts of the world at that time started being common because, well, this was the time that the first really cheaper devices were being deployed, such as the Commodore 64, that was very nice, but also the ZX Spectrum, the TK-90, etc. But here in Uruguay, actually, it was very rare, and particularly so in my my part of life, in my neighborhood, etc. So yes, I was somehow an early adopter here.
Yeah. Like, I mean, having the opportunity to work with computers in 1982 in Montevideo.
Of course, it was a huge opportunity because it helped me to better understand, to also to find something that I really liked, and also that could help me afterwards.
Right. You started university in 1986, right after the end of the dictatorship regime. What can you share about your academic experience during that transitional period?
Well, it was a quite interesting period, we can say. Actually, the dictatorship had almost destroyed the university. They had, jailed a lot of the professors, and many other professors had to go abroad, to exile, and others lost their posts. So actually, there were very, very, very few teachers and professors in the university, and there was no research going on. When the dictatorship ended in 1985, the university tried to restart a bit its work. People were coming from abroad. But actually, when I went to university, still there were very, very few people with degrees, with doctorates, for instance, etc. I started studying computer systems engineering, and in the whole Institute of Computing, there was nobody with a PhD, no one professor with a PhD there. There were a couple of professors who had master degrees that they came from Sweden. They were Uruguayans who were exiled and then came back. And then most of the other people were very young people who were, at the same time that they were teaching, they were learning themselves. So it was also, of course, a moment of enthusiasm. There was this sense that we were rebuilding the university, and that the students, we were part of this task. So there were many self-study groups. There were some courses that were not taught because there were no teachers, and so we had to study on our own. And it was difficult. It was demanding. There were even no glasses in windows sometimes. It was very cold in winter, no curtains, so very hot in summer, and lots of students, so many times we didn't even have space to sit in the courses. But at the same time, the programs were being changed, were being modernized. There were also professors coming from abroad to help. They came 1 week, 2 weeks, they gave special courses. So it was, I think, it was a good opportunity to learn, but of course, it entailed a lot of effort and a lot of self-management. Really,
Right.
The idea of learning itself.
Yeah. It was really a process of reconstructing the academic
zero.
environment, not only from the infrastructure point of view, but also human resources.
Yes,
I can imagine.
I think infrastructure, of course, is important, but human resources is the most important aspect. And yes, actually, we started nearly from zero. So we even in the computer institute, there was a plan that was called the Turing plan, in homage to Turing. And actually, it entailed exactly this: people starting doing their masters, their PhDs abroad, people coming to help from other countries, modernizing the courses, and looking at a long-term plan in terms of 10, 15 years, and so that to try to reach a point where afterwards we can say we have a university that can compare with other universities of good standing in the region.
And while you were taking part of that process, you had to still find ways to earn money. You mentioned that you were involved in computer-oriented applications, let's say. So, but what did you do exactly?
Well, actually, when I started in the university, as I said, I was mostly teaching, also programming courses, etc., to young people. You know, at that point, computers were being popularized, so even for I taught logo courses for very young children, you know, 6, 10 years. But then afterwards, as I progressed in career, I also started to develop small systems for different business, you know, you know, the accounting, human resources management, well, this kind of small systems for different kind of companies. For instance, for a chain of small groceries, or also another systems for an accounting shop, those kind of small opportunities. And afterwards also, and at the same time and a bit afterwards, I also had the opportunity to have a post at the science school, participating in a program with the energy generator company in Uruguay to simulate rain in the reservoirs, in the hydrological reservoirs. And afterwards, I had the opportunity to work in the URUSIP project. That was a project in the Presidency of Uruguay that aimed to construct a real-time environment for the president to have all the main information about, I don't know, imports, exports, the energy generation, prices, whatever was happening in the country. And not only to have this information online, that at that point was very difficult. There was not internet in Uruguay, so everything had to go by modem calls between the different parts of Uruguayan government, but also to have some statistical tools, what we would say nowadays, artificial intelligence tools, to detect changes, to make aware the president and the people in government of different changes in tendencies, you know, so that alarms could be activated. And it was a very interesting program. Actually, it was very based on the ideas of Stafford Beer, so one of the fathers of systems science. And Victor Ganon and Elena Ganon led that work at that time. So it was a very interesting environment. I worked actually in the same building as the president of Uruguay. And sometimes I had to go to his office to prepare the computers that he would be using to see all that information. We even went to Nicaragua and to Argentina to pass on this system also to the presidencies of these countries. And then, well, afterwards, I also had a position in school at the Operations Research Department. So at one point, I had 4 jobs at the same time.
Fascinating, fascinating. And when did OR appear in your life?
Well, actually, the systems engineering course had 3 terms of operations research. So
wow,
actually,
that's surprising, actually.
Yes, there was a lot of contents on OR, but actually there were no teachers for those courses, so I actually had to study them on my own, and just to prepare the exams, I studied a lot on the Minu book, who was really an encyclopedia of operations research, also a linear programming on the Sol gas book, and actually I loved all these subjects, but I had to just to study on my own, as I said. And well, afterwards, as the operations research department was quite empty, there were some calls for open positions for assistantships. And then I started trying to get into one of these positions, which was not easy. I had to apply 2 or 3 different times, and always I was near entering, but there were people with more background and well, better curriculum. So at the end, after insisting a lot, I actually could enter into one of these positions, and well, I started working at the Operations Research Group in the Computing Institute.
Very interesting. As a teaching assistant, right?
As a teacher assistant.
Mm-hmm. But there were no professors there to assist, you know.
Of course, it was everything quite empty. Actually, there was working there were Erwin Reises and Marita Urquhart, Uruguayans who had studied abroad in France and in Sweden. And there were a number 5, 6 very young people like myself. So actually we had to do the work of a professor because there were no other professors to take that work.
Right. So you earned your degree in 1991 and, started having this job as assistant professor in the OR group at university. But how did the OR group at the Universidad de la República begin to take shape?
Well, actually, during these years, we started some cooperation, in particular with Gerardo Rubino, who is an Uruguayan who is based in France. He also had to fly to France in order not to be caught by the dictatorship. And well, he did his PhD and he's a researcher there. And he started coming at the end of the dictatorship. He started coming to Uruguay, giving some courses. And then the department also, the group of Operations Research, also saw that it was very important to have people continue their studies abroad. And well, I was the lucky one. I wanted to. I had the possibility to do it. No, I was not yet married at that time. So I went to France, to Rennes, Irisa, that's the INRIA anthem in Britain. And I started first a master, and then I did a PhD with Gerardo, under the supervision of Gerardo Rubí.
Right.
Well, those were very interesting years also. In particular, during the PhD, actually, I went back and forth between Uruguay and France. So I was 3 months in each country during 3 years until I finished my PhD in 1996.
Mm-hmm. And what did you study during your master's and during your PhD?
Well, actually, we had started some work before going to France in network reliability models. And well, I continued that work during the master. And then during the PhD, we also did a bit on variance reduction techniques. And we added performance evaluation methods for, well, in general, nowadays these areas are called performability, quality of experience, etc. But the idea below is finding good models that can help design or optimize different kind of systems, communication systems, etc.
Mm-hmm. And that involves a lot of Monte Carlo simulation, right?
Of course, this area, one of the main points is Monte Carlo and variance reduction techniques, but also Markov chain models. So there are also some numerical methods, but also Monte Carlo methods there.
Mm-hmm.
And well, some optimization work. At that moment, we were starting using GRASP method that was quite new in these years. So we had very few journals in Uruguay. One of them was the European Journal of Operations Research. It was for us wonderful. And at that time, there were some articles written about GRASP methods, for instance, Mauricio Resident, etc.
Yes,
There was
yes.
also Taboo Search. Well, it was at the moment where the meta heuristics were a bit exploding, and well, we were lucky to have that journal as a resource.
Right. And the viewers and listeners interested in learning more about the story of the GRASP meta heuristic. GRASP is known as the Greedy Randomized Adaptive Search Procedure by Tom Feo and Mauricio Rezende. You should check out the episode with Mauricio Rezende. It's very interesting. He explains the story behind all of that, even the story behind the name GRASP, which is very amusing. And I mean, you mentioned that you finished your PhD in 1996, but in 1994, you attended the very first edition of ALIO, the Latin American OR Summer School. The event took place in Punta de Tralca in Chile and was organized by another subject to guest, in this case, Andrés Weintraub, a fantastic person. What are your memories of that event?
Well, actually, it was very important for me and for our group, the Operations Research Group. It was a very special moment because it was the first time that such a summer school was organized in Latin America. And there was a fantastic group. Of course, Andrés Weintraub, who is a wonderful person. He was very welcoming to us. but also Irene Loiseau was there. There was the support from Nelson Maculan. Lots of wonderful people from the ALIO, the Asociación Latinoamericana de Investigación de Operaciones, who worked a lot to make this a unforgettable experience. And there were lots of younger people who were doing their PhDs, as I was at that moment, and who have become friends and colleagues who work in different countries in the region and even in the world.
Yeah.
So the very strong networking that went on in this and in later editions of the school.
Yeah. Summer schools are really a nice opportunity to connect with people from your own generation and establish good connections for the future, right? Not only to collaborate, but even to make the conference life more enjoyable. And it's a very, very nice experience. Once you completed your PhD in 1996, you became an assistant professor. And the following year, you were part of the committee that organized ELAVIO in Montevideo, right?
Yes, in 1997, we organized the fourth ELAVIO. We had enjoyed a lot the previous ones, and well, we thought that it was our turn to contribute to the community. So we were a small group, actually. We were 5-6 persons involved. We worked a lot, and well, we received the colleagues from different countries. I remember well a session on the future of OR. Remember that nobody was speaking, and then Celso Ribeiro, you must know him, he just provoked everyone. He said, well, OR is something from the past, we will not go on. And then everyone started speaking, saying, no, it's the future. And well, of course, it was just for provoking the discussion. That I remember his participation very, very fondly. The school was held in a very nice old hotel, Hotel Carrasco. This hotel is nowadays a 5-star hotel. At that moment, actually, it was in the municipality hands, and well, there were some problems. The employees went on strike, so we had to find some places where to have lunch, etc. But still, the school went very well, and still we find people who remember that time and that visit to Montevideo. Montevideo seaside it's also quite nice. The school was held in summertime, carnival time, so actually I think it was an overall good experience.
Yes, we organized the ELAVIO ourselves here in Paraíba, in the city of Areia. Professor Lucidio Cabral led the organizing team. And it was a very, very nice experience, having these students from not only Latin America, but from other countries as well, right? So very, very nice. And Gilbert Laporte, who was also subject to guest, visited Montevideo during the 90s to help you guys with vehicle routing, correct?
Of course. At that point, we had the largest Uruguayan company, Conaprole, Cooperativa Nacional de Productores de Leche, a milking cooperative, okay, who asked us to prepare a vehicle routing system to help them to collect the milk from the producers. And well, actually it was quite a difficult problem with 2-time windows, with many depots, well, a very large country scale problem. And so we actually had the help of Gilbert Laporte, who is really an expert on the area. He came twice to Montevideo, he gave courses, he helped us in thinking about the problem, how to approach it. He was very, very generous with us. And of course, we have a really fond memory of all his help. Actually, it was very, very important for us to have this cooperation. That's actually the experience in general. Whenever we need the help from a colleague from any part in the world, it's just writing to him, to her, contacting, even if we do not know previously the person. There's actually very, very open attitude of everyone in the community.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And let's discuss your main research contributions now. You continued working on variance reduction and network reliability after your PhD, didn't you?
Yes, we are still working on that area. We cooperate with colleagues in different parts of the world. Of course, still with Gerardo Rubino, with Mohamed El Kadiri, with Bruno Tufan in France. but also with colleagues in Argentina, in Chile, in Brazil, well, in different countries, in the US. And we have discussed or developed other models, models taking into account, for instance, distance constraints, flow constraints. And more recently, we looked a bit into dependencies between the states of the networks, and well, and different techniques and approaches. More recently, we are looking into machine learning models to simplify the network reliability model itself, or to infer it from data available. So well, that's still a line of work. And well, nowadays I have grandsons and grandsons and granddaughters working there.
Very nice. And you mentioned that you're using machine learning to improve the performance of your methods. Do you see other research directions that look promising when it comes to variance reduction and network reliability?
Yes, well, actually, I always network reliability. I think it's a proxy for many different applications. But there are, on one hand, we have worked with colleagues on actual real-life applications when the networks themselves are subject to natural disasters. Like we cooperated with colleagues in Chile, who is, well, a country subject to earthquakes and tsunamis, etc. So I think there's a line of actual application in this kind of situations. And well, and regarding variance reduction itself, of course, the goal would be always to have the perfect zero variance reduction. There are actually some methods called like that, but it's always a challenge, because theoretically you can never exactly reach the zero variance, but in practice, in many cases, you can approach it. Well, it depends on the context. So I think those are nice lines of work.
Right. And what can you tell me about your work on transit network design?
Well, actually, that was also motivated by real life applications here in Uruguay. We started working with the municipalities of Montevideo, of a smaller city called Rivera. You know that transit is very important for everyday life and for people who use bus systems to commute. And well, we started many years ago looking at how to model this kind of systems. And well, we went on to look at mathematical programming methods based on some modeling of the transfers themselves of the bus lines. And Antonio Mautone did a PhD under the supervision of Maria Urquhart and myself. And I think his work has been quite interesting. Nowadays, he's the leader of the area in Uruguay, and well, he works a lot with colleagues in Chile and other countries also. And well, I think it's an important aspect, because as I said, this also helps many people's life when you can improve the commuting time.
Absolutely. You have done several relevant yet unpublished works applying OR for social good. Could you mention a few examples?
Yes, well, we have work going on in application with the Uruguayan cooperatives of housing. Housing in Uruguay is always a problem. There's not enough housing for all people. And one way of organizing the housing access is through cooperatives. Cooperatives in Uruguay are given some land from the government, and then they build themselves the housing. When the houses, the units are prepared, they just assign them to the cooperative members. But usually they did that just by a random draw. And then not everybody has the house it prefers. Of course, all houses should be identical. But for instance, if it's a flat, they can be higher or lower. They can be northern or southern oriented. It can be more near the entrance or the last part of the cooperative site. So actually, we prepare a system to collect the preferences of the cooperative members, and applying a simple mathematical programming model in two stages. We perform an assignment, which is fair in some aspect, and at the same time maximizes satisfaction, global satisfaction. So we have two different objectives. So nobody is given very low reference units, but at the same time, we want to have the global satisfaction to be as high as possible. And well, this work was done with students, with cooperative members. Nowadays, it's being applied in different cooperatives just through word of mouth. The cooperative uses it and tells another cooperative to apply it. And well, it's been very nice to go to the assemblies, the members' assemblies, people from all backgrounds, and try to explain a bit what those models do, and well, see if they are convinced to use it or not. We also have worked recently with the municipality of Montevideo to help them to assign people with disabilities to different administrative posts. So this was also a work with students, and it implied doing a groundwork of finding out which were the available positions, which were the requirements, also working with people with disability organizations, and doing then the matching, and while preparing a tool based also on mathematical programming, having different objective functions so that the decision makers can see what are the alternatives. And well, that also worked very, very well. We also have worked with the Carnaval de las Promesas. This is the carnival for the younger people, and to prepare the schedule of the Carnaval de las Promesas so that we have a balanced schedule. It's not maybe known. The Carnival is the most popular event in Uruguay. More people go to see Carnival than soccer.
Wow.
Now it's impressive. And in addition to the main carnival, there's also this children's carnival that takes place 2 months before, in December and January. And well, we also help with that work.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, sometimes all of this practical work can go unnoticed because they are not actually published in international journals, but they are, very impactful, especially to society. I mean, you're affecting the lives of so many people. And I wonder, how do you guys are able to do that? I mean, you have to convince people that OR and using this type of techniques are, promising. Yeah. And for some practitioners and those people that are, collaborating with university, at times they are very skeptical. So how do you start a conversation? And usually these demands, they come from, the society, or you guys go and try to look for opportunities. How does it work?
It's a mix. Sometimes they come. For instance, in the case of the cooperatives, actually, there was a cooperative member, an engineer, that Adrian Manera, he came and he told us, well, that's this problem. I looked into that one as a student, but nowadays cooperatives are still not solving it. And then, well, we just answered this demand. We tried also to involve students, even in pre-grad students, so as to make more people be involved, and also to give it more sustainability. In other cases, it's just that we reach out. For instance, in the Carnival case, we reach out to the municipality who organizes the event, and we told them, well, we know that making the schedule is difficult. Is it? Yes. Is it so for you? Yes. Well, we can help you, no strings attached, and we can show you such a schedule, and then you can see if you want or not to apply it. But you can at least have an alternative. And well, of course, there can be skepticism or doubts about how to do it, but it also worked very, very well. And well, in the case of people with disabilities, actually, the municipality was working in this area, had already an agreement with our school, but for another aspect, for preparing devices to help people with disabilities integrate. And then we told them, well, we can do this other aspect, we know that it's possible to use this kind of methods to better and perform the assignment of the jobs to the people. Do you want to explore? Well, it went. But it requires building confidence, building personal links. So of course there are also many other opportunities that still go without taking advantage of the technique. So it's a work, I think, for every researcher and practitioner to be aware and to try to build these links and to find these opportunities.
Yeah, but it's really good work, Hector. Really, I wish that our group or other groups have the chance to do something similar. The feeling of having math-based solutions or optimization-based solutions or R-based solutions in general being deployed in practice is just very, very rewarding. And let's see if our field gets more popular over the years. I mean, in the last years we have experienced something really positive, and I hope we continue, in a positive direction. And after becoming a full professor in 2003, you were appointed to many leadership roles, not only at your university, but also at other organizations such as the Centro Latinoamericano de Estudios de Informática. However, I would like you to talk a bit about your term as president of ALIO from 2006 to 2010.
Well, it was really a privilege. I was very honored to have this possibility. ALIO is still growing. That at that point it was very interesting. There were many new societies going into ALIO, and well, I had the confidence of the colleagues who elected me to that task. At that moment, well, we worked a lot to consolidate the ALIO schools. We worked a lot also to integrate new national societies within ALIO. And well, also we worked in some formal aspects, that sometimes you must take into account of internal organization rules. Up to that point, ALIO was a bit a society of friends. That's okay. But we also worked a lot on improving the formal aspects of the national societies who were making part of ALIO, and well, having more clear rules for the internal organization. But well, there were very interesting years. Well, the CLEI conference was being held regularly, the LABIO also, and well, lots of colleagues helped. I remember many, but from that moment, for instance, one good friend that helped in that moment was Andrés Medalla from Colombia, and well, of course, many other people, many already mentioned.
Yeah. I had the chance to interview Andrés Medalla. He's a dear friend. I like him very much. And it was around that time that I first heard about your name. I was, starting master's and PhD, and while you were the president of ALIO, you received the emails and things like that. So Héctor Cancela is a name that I remember very vividly. Now having the chance to talk to you and interact with you after so many years, it's
Yes.
it's very nice. Yeah.
A few years.
Yes. And interestingly enough, the OR Society of Uruguay was created around the time, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a big part of that process, as I said. Usually there was representation from many countries, but not in every case the National Society was already organized. So actually Uruguay was one of these countries where the National Society did not have the formal status. And then during those years, we actually, we went to the education minister, etc. We did everything what was needed to have it registered and to have it as a formal association.
Yes. It was about time, right?
Yes, of course.
Uh-huh. And what are your plans as the current president of IFORS?
Well, actually, I think, as you mentioned, OR is actually even more relevant each day. I think that IFORS has a very nice opportunity to base on the work of the national societies, but also to help them gain more international visibility. Actually, I think we must improve the synergies among the national societies, among the different activities, because IFORS has a lot of activities. Of course, the triennial conference, of course, it helps the summer and winter schools. We have the newsletter. We have two main journals, ITER and now SAM. And we work with the regional groupings, and we have distinguished lecturer programs, or lots of programs, but I think we must integrate them better. We must, as I said, find the synergies among them. And I think also we must involve more and more people. Sometimes it happens, people are mostly concerned with their national society or regional grouping, and that is okay. But we also need more people to work, to help, and to integrate in activities at the truly international level. Well, I think those are the main ideas. So that when we have a workshop in a region, well, this also impacts in the journal. This also impacts in other people working the same area in other regions of the world. This can afterwards result in a special conference on the area. And well, of course, finding then a distinguished lecturer and finding young people who want to perform more work on the area, etc. Try to find the realimentation of all these aspects.
It sounds really promising. I wish you all the best in your endeavors as president of IFORS. You mentioned several initiatives. One that I find it particularly important is the IFORS newsletter that was introduced by Elise de Rosario. I had a chance to interview her, lovely person. I met her a couple of times too. And it's a chance to have an idea of what's going on across the globe. And I think, bringing all of us together is a really good thing, but yet super challenging. Of course, we come from different societies, cultures, and even the way some of us think about OR might not be similar to other people. So as you said, creating an environment to have a very good synergy among all of us is an extremely difficult task, I would say. But something tells me that you are a good candidate to make that happen. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what's coming up in the next years regarding IFORS.
Thank you, Pat.
Yes. And Hector, while doing some research for our podcast, I realized that you appeared in many TV shows in Uruguay, including entertainment shows. That was due to your position as president of the Asociación de Docentes de la Universidad de la República from 2019 to 2023. Did you see this coming, or were you taken by surprise?
No, well, actually, I was taken by surprise twice. Actually, in being elected as president of the association, well, that's a trading group, no? All the professors, teachers of the university are associated there. And then afterwards in having this task, because, well, working conditions are not always very, very good here. We have different problems. And then we had to go to society to let everyone know about what the conditions at the university were. And yes, this entailed going to entertainment shows and, well, just telling what was happening in context very different from the academic ones. It was very interesting. It's a different world. But I think it's important also. It's part also, I think, it's part of what we must do. In this case, of course, for my association. And I think we should do that for ORs.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I think we should be flexible and sometimes, get out of our comfort zone and try to disseminate OR to the general public. It requires, some adjustments in terms of vocabulary, maybe. We all know that OR might not be the ideal term, to represent what we actually do. But despite all of these little things, I think it's part of our job in a way to make people aware of what we do. And I think we are heading in a promising direction too in that regard. And I see IFORS again playing a very important role in promoting our field, of course. And how do you balance teaching, research, and administrative roles?
Well, it's never easy overall. Of course, also one must balance also personal life. As, of course, my wife, my daughter, and my son also are a huge part of my life and, of course, my time. I think on one hand, it's very important to have this overall balance between personal life and professional life. And within professional life, I think that one important thing that it's not easy to always to achieve is to have also this same kind of synergy of alienation. You know, if I'm working in something administrative, I try to have it be on areas that relate to my own experience. I don't know, in teaching or in research, so that I can give in this administrative aspect my experience in actual doing the, the tasks. And between the tasks themselves, also, I try always to align teaching with what I'm doing in research. I try to incorporate in research the areas that I must teach, also in outreach, in extension. As I told you, well, we had the opportunity to work with these kinds of external organizations. Well, we try to involve students. We have quite a flexible courses here, so students can get credits for working in projects. They can get credits for being in a project outside, in doing research, in publishing. Well, we try, I always say, when you do something, it should help you at least in two directions at the same time. So every task should have at least two different aspects or directions, because otherwise time is not enough for doing everything we want to do.
Right. I mean, I don't know how to do that, but it's very very difficult. And what do you think about the future of OR in relation to societal issues and other aspects?
Well, I actually think that OR is getting more and more involved. It's true also that sometimes it doesn't go by the name OR. So sometimes it can be hidden, but I think that the societal problems grow in complexity, grow in urgency. So actually, it's not really possible to address them properly without including some aspect of operations research looked at as the science of decision making, or the support, rational support of decision making. The first point for doing good work is having data. We have this experience since the beginning when we started working with different organizations outside. First step was always helping them to have good data, clean data, good information systems. And well, as these information systems nowadays are pervasive everywhere, this opens the opportunity afterwards to apply the models. So I think really there's a huge ground. And as I say, there are many applications actually, well, no, by the name of analytics, by the name of applied data science, by whatever name we want to put. And for society also, I think also there's a huge opportunity, difficult also to completely perform for the most soft OR methods, for society problems which involve many stakeholders and where it's not easy to find a good compromise. Well, I think there's always an opportunity there for more growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think we in Latin America also have a great chance to make impact using OR. I mean, the more the people from the industry or the society in general are aware of what we do, the more we have the conditions to deploy efficient solutions in practice. So let's see what happens in the near future. Hopefully something good for our community. Hector, would you like to leave a takeaway message for the youngsters out there?
Yes, well, I think that the most important point for every young person is just to find what motivates her or him, just to find not only discipline, what kind of activities really makes them be enthusiastic. And we who work in OR are very fortunate because we usually can perform very interesting work, either in application, in professional life, or in academic life. Of course, there are so many areas, lines of research that are still open. So I think that the most important thing is to find the self-expression somehow, no? To find the aspect which can be the most fulfilling, and there's ground for opening new areas, new research, new pathways. It's not just threading the old paths or following what we old people have done. That's just opening new ideas and new avenues. So there's really a lot of room, a lot of space, and we need that. We need that the new generation, of course, overperforms what we have already reached. So I really encourage everyone just to study, to search, and well, of course, to work hard to achieve your dreams.
Okay, very nice message, Héctor. So, thank you very much for your time. Ha sido un placer hablar contigo. It was
Placer para mí.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure. I hope the people out there, they have, got some inspiration from your stories and your views. And I hope you had fun as I did.
Yes, thank you. It was really a pleasure for me also. It was very, very nice and very fun. And well, I encourage you to go on with this initiative because I think it's a wonderful contribution to our community. So thank you a lot for inviting me, and thank you a lot for all your work. I understand it's really lots and hard work to perform the podcast. So thank you a lot.
Yes, thanks for your words. And I hope to meet you soon. If you have any interest in visiting Brazil, I mean, we're relatively close.
Of course.
Not so close. I mean,
South American
João Pessoa.
But, yes, 3,000 or 4,000 kilometers away.
Yeah.
We are close.
Yeah. But anyway, looking forward to meeting you soon. Okay, Héctor. Take care. And once again, all the best and best wishes as president of IFORS. Okay?
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Ciao. Hasta luego. Bye.
Hasta luego. Bye.
Bye.